Hey, hello, grade five. Today we are going to continue on in the reading of the book Shadow. Now, if you can recall from our last reading on Monday, we ended with Grandpa asking Amon to tell him the whole story. In order for him to help Amon and his father, he needed all the details of the journey from going on the bus and saying goodbye to Shadow to coming to England. And he said, to this day. And so that is what we are going to do. So if you could take out your novels and if you could turn to page 101. It's the chapter's entitled God is Good. And this is Amon speaking. All right. If you think it will help, I'll go on then. The bus. We were on the bus. It was a comfortable bus, the most comfortable I'd ever been on. I was missing Shadow, of course I was. But apart from that, I was feeling really up. I think I imagined this bus would take us all the way to England. I was only 8 then, remember? I hadn't had any real idea where England was, nor how far away it was, nor how long it would take us to actually get there. I think if we had known what a long and terrible journey it was going to be, then I'd never have gotten on that bus in the first place. As it turned out, that bus journey was the last time we were going to be comfortable or happy for a very long time. Mother was sick with worry when we came to the frontier with Iran. I could see that. She told me we were going to play a game. We had to pretend that we were asleep if the soldiers came on board to check us. So that's what we did. I heard them coming down the bus, but they passed by us without stopping. I only dared to open my eyes when the bus was on its way again. We were through. You see, Amon, she whispered to me, God is good. God is helping us. And grade five, what an interesting way of avoiding questioning from the soldiers by imagining that you're asleep. A really bright idea on the part of Amon's mother. Let's continue. She told me that she had telephoned from the army base to Uncle Mur's contact in Tehran, the next big city, and he would be there waiting to meet us when we arrived, that he would take care of everything. So we had nothing more to worry about. I think I must have slept almost all the way because I don't remember much about that journey, only that it seemed endless. Uncle Mur's friend was there to meet us, as Mother had said. He walked us through the streets, warning us not to talk to anyone and not to look anyone in the eye, particularly policemen. He told us that if we got caught, they would put us into prison or send us back to Afghanistan. So, of course, we did what he said. He took us first to one man, who took some money off Mother, then to another, who Uncle Mur's friend called the Fixer, who took even more money off of her. I didn't like any of these people. I didn't trust them either. They treated us as if we were dirt. I felt lost in a strange and hostile world with no Shadow to guide us anymore. But I had my silver star. I kept it hidden in my pocket. I never took it out in case someone saw it. I'd squeeze on it tight whenever I was frightened, which was a lot of the time, and always before I went to sleep at night. It was my talisman, my lucky charm. So it's interesting that even though Shadow is no longer with them, and Amon misses the fact that Shadow was always there to guide them, that silver badge still connects, remember, Amon to Shadow and to Sergeant Brody and to good times. And he calls it his good luck charm, his talisman. Uncle Mur's friend, kept telling us everything would be all right, that we would be looked after now all the way to England. Travel food. We'd have everything we needed. There would be no problem, he said. No problem at all. We believed him. We trusted him. We had to. We didn't have a choice, did we? But it turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare. They took us down into a cellar and said we'd have to stay there till everything was arranged. We were there for days on end. They gave us food and water, but they wouldn't let us out, except to go to the toilet. Mother said it was like being back in the police cell in Afghanistan. So grade 5, what a strange occurrence occurring. Sitting in this cellar, not knowing, not being told what is happening, just given food and water, but not allowed out. Then they came for us one night. They took us out into a dark alley and shoved us into the back of a pickup truck. I remember looking out of the back and seeing all the bright lights of the city. Once, when we were waiting at traffic lights, I said to Mother that we should climb out and make a run for it, that we were better off on our own. But then the truck moved off, and the chance to escape was gone. We never had another one. Somewhere on the edge of the city, the pickup stopped. There were people waiting for us. They made us get out and climb up into the inside of a huge truck. It looked empty at first, but it wasn't. At the very back, there was this large metal container, its doors wide open. They pushed us in, threw us a couple of blankets, told us we had to be quiet, and just left. It was pitch black in there and cold. We sat huddled in the corner. Mother telling me all the time it was going to be all right, that Uncle Murr knew what he was doing, that these were good people who were looking after us, and that everything would turn out fine, God willing. Hours later, when we heard the sound of voices outside and when the truck started up and moved off, I began to believe that she was right about everything, that maybe the worst was over. I kept telling myself that we'd soon be in England with Uncle Murr, and we'd have a warm place to sleep, running water, television, and I could go see Manchester United play and see Ryan Giggs. Hey, I might even meet him. But it wasn't only those thoughts that kept me going. It was my silver star and the memory I had in my head of Shadow, always trotting on ahead of us, her tail waving us on, how she'd stop to look back at us from time to time to make sure that we were coming, her eyes telling us that all we had to do was to keep going like she was. I just had to think about her, picture her in my mind, and however hungry or cold or frightened I was, it made me feel a little better for a while. But not for long. I was half asleep by the time the truck stopped again. We heard footsteps inside the truck and then voices right outside our container. Police, Mother whispered. It's the police. They found us. Oh, please, God, no. Please, God, no. She had her arms around me, holding me tight, kissing me and kissing me, as if it was for the last time. So grade 5, quite a situation they find themselves in. And bizarre, from the bus, which seemed like a paradise, to this cellar, and now to this pickup that took them out, to this truck where they're in this container, and now when they're at, they seem that they had stopped, police after them. What is going to happen? We'll find out. The little red train. The door of the container opened. The daylight blinded us. We could not see who it was at first. It was not the police. Whew. It turned out to be the fixer man and his gang, the same people who had put us in there. They said we could get out if we wanted and stretch our legs, and that we were waiting for some other people to join us. We were in a kind of loading bay with trucks all around, but not many people. We should have run off there and then, but one of the fixers' gang always seemed to be watching us, so we didn't dare. Only a few minutes later, and it was too late. The other refugees arrived, and we were all herded back into the same container, given some more blankets, a little fruit, and a bottle or two of water. They slammed the door shut on us again, and the fixer shouted at us that no matter what, we mustn't call out or we'd all be caught and taken to prison. We could hear the truck being loaded up around us. It was a while, I remember, before my eyes became accustomed to the dark again, and I could see the others. As the truck drove off, we sat there in silence for a while, just looking at one another. I counted 12 of us in all, mostly from Iran, and a family, mother, father, and a little boy from Pakistan, and beside us an old couple from Afghanistan, from Kabul. It was Ahmed, the little boy from Pakistan, who got us talking. He came over to me to show me his toy train because I was the only other kid there. And because I knew I could trust him, I think. It was plastic and bright red, I remember, and he was very, very proud of it. He knelt down to show me how it worked on the floor and telling everyone about how his grandpa worked on the trains in Pakistan. And in secret, I showed him the Silver Star badge Sergeant Brody had given me. Ahmed loved looking at it. He was full of questions about it, almost everything. He liked me, he said, because I had a name that sounded a lot like his. It wasn't long before we were all telling one another our stories. To begin with, Ahmed and me, we laughed a lot and played around, and that cheered everyone up. But it didn't last. I think our laughter lasted about as long as the fruit and the water. I don't know where the truck took us, nor how many days and nights we were locked up in the container. They didn't let us out. Not once. Not to go to the toilet even. Nothing. And we didn't dare shout out. They brought us no more water, no more food. We were freezing by night and stifling hot by day. When I was awake, I just longed to be asleep so I could forget what was happening, forget how much I was longing every moment for water and for food. Waking up was the worst. When we talked among one another now, it was usually to guess where we were, whether we were still in Iran or in Turkey or maybe in Italy. But none of this made any sense to me because I had no idea where any of these places were. In grade 5, what an interesting way of saying, he says, waking up was the worst part because he didn't want to remember what was happening to him at that moment. So let's continue on. Most of them, like Ahmed and his parents, said they were trying to get to England like we were. But a few were going to go to Germany or Sweden. One or two had tried before, like the old couple from Kabul who were going to live with their son in England, they told us. But they had already been caught twice and sent back. They were never going to give up trying, they said. But in the end, the stories stopped altogether, and there was no more talking, just the sound of moaning and crying and praying. We all prayed. For me, the journey in that truck was like traveling through a long, dark tunnel with no light at the end of it. And there was no air to breathe either. That was the worst of it. People were coughing and choking, and Aman was being sick too. But he still held on to his little train. And the smell. Oh, I'll never forget the smell. In grade five, what an interesting thought, or thought that Amon has had when he says, "For me, the journey in that truck was like traveling through a long, dark tunnel with no light at the end of it." So it's like traveling in this tunnel, thinking you're going to come out of it and never coming out of it. After that, I think I must have lost consciousness because I don't remember much more. When I woke up, it was probably days later, but I don't know. The truck had stopped. Maybe it was the shouting and the crying that woke me up, because that was all I could hear. Mother and the others were on their feet and banging on the sides of the container, screaming to be let out. By the time they came for us and dragged me out of there, I was half dead. But I was luckier than little Ahmed. When his father carried him out into the daylight, we could see for sure that he was dead. Ahmed's mother was wailing in her grief. It was like a cry of pain from deep inside her, a crying that I knew I would never end for her. I never heard such a dreadful sound before, and I hope I never will. Later, that same day, after they had buried him, his mother gave me his toy train to look after because I had been like a brother to Ahmed, she said. I've still got Ahmed's little red train back home in Manchester. The police, when they came to take us away, wouldn't let me bring it with me. I forgot it and wanted to go back for it, and they wouldn't let me. There wasn't time, they said. It's on the windowsill in my bedroom. I dreamed about Ahmed quite a bit, and often it's almost the same dream. He's with Shadow and with Sergeant Brody, and they're playing together outside the walls of a castle. It's night, and the sky is a ceiling painted with stars, and he's throwing a ball for her. Strange that how in dreams people who never even knew each other can meet up in places they could never have been to. So grade five, a really sad sort of section of the story once again when we hear of this journey, and maybe we could understand why Amon didn't want to relive this part of his journey to England. But keep in mind, grade five, we don't know where they are, how far away they are from England, and when they will get to England. But at this time, grade five, what I'd like you to do is to take out your question sheet. There are two more questions to work on, question 9 and 10. And please remember that after you finish 9 and 10, take a picture of both sides of your sheet and then submit it to me through the Google Classroom, because I'd like to take a look at that assignment and mark it. Anyway, have a great rest of the day. Bye now.